The room went silent when her breathing changed. It was a bright afternoon on set, but something felt off. The lights were perfect, the camera was rolling, and the scene had been rehearsed over and over. But then, without warning, Ana de Armas froze. Her eyes widened slightly, her hand trembled, and her breath hitched in her throat. No one noticed at first. The crew thought she was acting. The director leaned forward, excited by the raw emotion on her face. But Keanu Reeves noticed, and what he saw made his heart stop. Keanu had worked with many actors, seen all kinds of emotions, real and staged. But this wasn't acting, it was fear. Silent, invisible fear. The kind that creeps in without warning and tightens its grip. He took a small step forward, careful not to draw too much attention. Ana was still standing, but barely. Her face had gone pale and her chest was rising too fast, too shallow. She was trying to hide it, trying to be strong, but she was breaking right there under the spotlight. No one else moved. The assistant director called for another take, not realizing. The cameras rolled again. The lights hit her eyes. That's when her knees gave in. Before she could hit the floor, Keanu caught her. He didn't say anything dramatic. He didn't shout. He simply held her, one arm steadying her back, the other gently guiding her down to sit. He whispered something, too soft to hear. The crew finally understood something was wrong. The director stood up. The lights dimmed. Someone called for water. Someone else called for a medic. But Keanu didn't leave her side. Ana sat on the floor, gasping quietly, her hands clutching the edges of her jacket. Panic had wrapped itself around her like a cold chain. Her chest rose and fell too quickly. Her fingers trembled. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Keanu knelt beside her, eyes calm. He didn't touch her again, didn't crowd her. He just stayed there, breathing slowly, deliberately, in and out, like waves, soft, slow waves. And when she finally opened her eyes and looked at him, he nodded, just once, and took one breath so deep and calm, it made her blink. "Match me," he whispered so softly only she could hear. "Breathe with me." Ana stared at him, lost and afraid. But something in his voice reached her. She watched his chest rise. She tried to follow. She couldn't. "It's okay," he whispered again. "Just try." Another breath, slow, steady, grounded. The medic arrived, but Keanu raised his hand gently. "Give her a second," he said. "Don't scare her more." Ana looked at him again, this time with tears brimming in her eyes. She still couldn't speak, but she mimicked his breath again, slower this time, shaky, uncertain. But she tried, and that was the moment everything changed. The crew stood in silence. The entire set, once buzzing with motion, had gone still. It was just her and Keanu now. Two people on the ground, one shattered, one steady, and no one watching could forget it. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Ana's breaths became slower. The tightness in her chest eased, her hands relaxed. Her shoulders dropped, and for the first time, she looked around and saw the faces of those who cared, but it was Keanu's face she looked at the longest. She whispered, "Thank you." Keanu didn't smile. He just nodded and said, "You don't have to be perfect, just real." The next day, word spread. No one knew the full story, but everyone heard something. Some said Ana had collapsed from exhaustion. Others whispered about a panic attack. But what people talked about most was Keanu's response. Not dramatic, not loud, just present. Calm. Deeply human. Later that week, a therapist working on a nearby set heard the story. She asked to meet Keanu. When she did, she told him, "What you did, we teach that in trauma training. But you did it naturally." Keanu just shrugged. "She was scared," he said. "You don't fix fear with more noise." Ana didn't come back to set for 3 days. When she did, she walked a little slower. Her eyes were quieter, but she smiled when she saw him, and he, true to himself, didn't make a scene. He just nodded once and asked, "Ready to roll?" She nodded back, and the cameras rolled, but from that day forward, she never forgot. And neither did anyone else. Because sometimes the real hero in the room isn't the one with the lines. It's the one who hears the silence, whispers behind the cameras. After the panic attack, the energy on set changed. No one said it out loud, but people moved differently, softer, slower. The loud laughter between takes faded into polite murmurs. The crew avoided sudden noises. Even the director, known for his sharp voice, spoke in low tones around Anna. They all saw what had happened. They all saw Keanu kneel beside her, like he was guarding something precious. No one mocked. No one questioned. They just watched her now with quiet respect. Anna returned to set with a brave smile. But Keanu saw through it. He always noticed what others missed. Not because he was trained to, but because he cared. Deeply and quietly. On the third day back, after a long shoot, Anna sat on the edge of the makeup trailer. Her fingers played with the zipper of her hoodie, and her eyes followed the sunset. She looked calm, but Keanu could tell. Her breathing wasn't relaxed. Her foot tapped lightly. She was trying to distract herself. He walked up slowly and didn't sit beside her. Instead, he stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, just close enough for her to know he was there. "You don't have to act right now," he said softly. Anna didn't look at him at first. She just kept staring at the sun as it dropped. Behind the hills. "Everyone keeps looking at me like I'm broken," she whispered. "You're not," Keanu replied. "You're healing. There's a difference." His voice wasn't filled with pity. It was steady, kind, like warm tea after a storm. She finally looked at him, her eyes soft and tired. "Have you ever felt like that?" she asked. Keanu's face didn't change, but his eyes did. Just slightly. "Yes," he said. There was a long pause between them. No birds, no wind. Just the hum of distant equipment being packed up for the night. "How did you deal with it?" Anna asked. "By letting it be real," he answered. "I didn't hide from it. I sat with it. It's scary, but it passes." Anna blinked. Her lips trembled. "They want me to be this perfect image," she said. "But inside sometimes, I just want to disappear." Keanu took a slow breath. "You don't have to be perfect," he said. "You just have to stay." He finally sat beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. Not too close, not too far. "You know what the strongest thing you did was?" he asked. She shook her head. "You let yourself fall, and then you let someone catch you. That takes more strength than pretending you're fine." Anna didn't reply, but she didn't need to. The silence between them said enough. Later that night, she received a small package in her trailer. It wasn't from wardrobe. It wasn't from the studio. It had no flashy label, just her name, written in small handwriting on a plain envelope. Inside was a tiny book, a journal. The first page had a quote written in ink. "Breathe. You've survived every breath so far." No name, no signature. But she knew. The next morning, Anna came to set with a different kind of calm. She wasn't smiling big, and her eyes still carried shadows. But her steps were steady. Her breath was slower. And when someone asked her if she was okay, she looked them in the eye and said, "I'm not perfect, but I'm present." The word spread fast, not through gossip, but through quiet admiration. People started asking questions. What exactly did Keanu do that helped her? Why did he respond the way he did? How did he stay so calm? And then, something surprising happened. A therapist from the studio's mental wellness department asked to review the footage from that day, not to criticize, but to understand. With permission, they studied the raw clips. They saw how Keanu approached slowly, how he breathed deliberately, how he said almost nothing, yet gave her everything. They took notes. They highlighted his posture, the distance he maintained, the way he let her lead the healing. Soon, Keanu's response was being discussed in therapy groups, not because he was famous, but because what he did worked. 2 weeks later, Anna was invited to speak at a small studio wellness workshop. She didn't want to. Public speaking wasn't her thing, especially not about something so personal. But she agreed on one condition, that Keanu be there too. He showed up early, of course, wearing a simple black shirt, jeans, and quiet eyes. Anna stood in front of a small group of young actors and crew members. She held the little journal in her hand. "I had a panic attack on set," she began, her voice trembling but honest. "I thought I was weak. I thought I ruined everything. But someone reminded me that falling isn't failure. It's just part of being real." She looked at Keanu, and he gave her the smallest smile. "We all wear masks," she said. "But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is take it off and let someone stay with you through the storm." There was a long silence after her words, then applause. But it wasn't loud. It was gentle, like gratitude in sound. After that, more people started opening up. Quiet conversations behind trailers, private talks over coffee. One by one, people started sharing stories they had hidden. And Keanu? He didn't lead any big speeches. He just listened. And when someone struggled to speak, he'd simply say, "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." One night, while filming a late scene, the camera assistant froze. His hands shook. He couldn't get the focus right. His breathing quickened. Keanu saw it. He didn't shout. He walked over, placed a calm hand on the table and said, "Breathe with me," just like he had done with Anna. And slowly the young man's hands stopped shaking. It was never about being a star, or a hero, or even a good actor. It was about presence, about kindness, about seeing people, truly seeing them, when they think they're invisible. And that is why therapists now study what he did. Not because it was a performance, but because it was pure and real. The interview that changed everything, Anna didn't plan to talk about it publicly. She didn't think anyone would understand. The panic attack had been real, raw, and frightening. And Keanu's support, so personal, so sacred, wasn't something she wanted to turn into headlines, but fate had a different plan. Weeks passed. The movie wrapped up its final scenes. The cast started doing press events, interviews, photo shoots, talk shows. Everyone was smiling, laughing, celebrating. Anna did her best to keep up. She smiled when the cameras rolled. She laughed when she was expected to. But inside, she still carried that moment. Not with shame, but with quiet gratitude. Then came the interview. A popular magazine requested a joint interview with Keanu and Anna. They said it was just for fun. Talk about the movie, a few jokes, some lighthearted stories. She agreed. It was supposed to be simple. But the interviewer had done his homework. Halfway through, after talking about stunts and behind the scenes memories, the interviewer leaned forward and said, "Anna, something happened on set that many people have heard whispers about. You don't have to answer, but I have to ask. Did you really have a panic attack in the middle of filming?" Anna froze. The studio rep sitting nearby shifted in her chair, nervous. Keanu looked over at Anna, calm as ever, giving her the choice without pressure. Anna looked down at her hands. Then she said, "Yes." The room went quiet. The interviewer blinked. "And it was Keanu who helped you through it?" Anna smiled softly, but her eyes grew wet. "He didn't help me through it," she said. "He helped me face it." Keanu didn't say anything. He just listened. Anna took a breath. This time, strong and steady. "I was having a panic attack. I couldn't breathe. Everything felt too loud, too bright. I wanted to disappear, but he saw me. He didn't try to fix me. He just stayed. The interviewer seemed caught off guard. He expected a story. What he got was a truth. "Keanu," he said carefully, "did you know what to do in that moment?" Keanu thought for a moment, then said, "I just remembered what it feels like when the world becomes too heavy, and I did what I wish someone had done for me." Silence again. No one in the room moved. The interviewer sat back, visibly emotional. "That's powerful," he whispered. The article came out 2 days later. The title read, "She Couldn't Breathe, and He Didn't Leave." Within hours, it went viral. Not because it was gossip, not because it was dramatic, but because people saw something they rarely see in the world anymore: true compassion. Comments flooded the page. "I had a panic attack once at work. I wish someone like Keanu had been there. We need more men like this, not trying to be heroes, just being human." I cried reading this. Thank you, Anna, for sharing your truth. People from all over the world began opening up about their own anxiety, their panic attacks, their silent battles. Keanu never responded publicly. He didn't post on social media. He didn't give a follow-up interview. But he did something else. He started showing up to mental health events, quietly, not as a speaker, not as a celebrity, just as a listener. One of the first events he attended was a small mental wellness circle at a youth center in Los Angeles. They didn't know he was coming. He walked in wearing a hoodie and jeans. No cameras, no assistants. A teenage girl recognized him and gasped. "You're Keanu Reeves," she whispered. He smiled gently. "Only if that's okay with you." The room laughed. During the session, when the therapist asked, "Does anyone want to share a time they felt unseen?" Keanu raised his hand, and he told them about a night years ago. He had been walking alone in the city after a shoot. It was late. He was tired. A part of him felt completely empty, like no matter how famous he became, something was missing. "Sat on a bench," he said, "for hours. People passed. No one looked twice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt invisible. I knew I was still breathing, but it didn't feel like living." He paused. The room held its breath. "And that's why," he continued, "when I see someone struggling to breathe, I stay, because sometimes presence is the loudest form of love." The story from the youth center spread quietly. It wasn't tabloid news. It wasn't clickbait. It was passed through whispers, private blogs, and shared between therapists. Soon, therapy students were shown footage of Keanu's calm response on set. Not to admire him as a star, but to study the way he made space for another person's fear. Universities began adding it to their training materials under a new term: trauma-informed presence. Anna, meanwhile, was growing stronger. Not just as an actress, but as a voice. She started speaking more openly, not to gain attention, but to help others feel less alone. On World Mental Health Day, she posted a photo of the small journal Keanu had given her. The caption read, "This helped me breathe again. Thank you. To everyone struggling. I see you." Millions reacted. Thousands commented. And among them were messages like, "I bought a journal today because of you. I had a panic attack last week. Your story gave me hope." And behind all of it, Keanu remained the same: calm, present, silent when silence was needed, and powerful, not through force, but through gentleness. Because the truth was simple. He didn't save her. He respected her storm and sat with her until the thunder passed. The airport moment that left strangers in tears. Months passed since that day on set. The movie was now a worldwide success. Fans filled theaters. Posters were everywhere. Talk shows replayed clips of Keanu and Anna's interviews, especially the part where she spoke about the panic attack. But behind all the noise, behind the lights and headlines, Something deeper had changed, not in Hollywood, but in the people who had watched. Anna continued to grow, not just as an actress, but as a woman unafraid of her truth. And Keanu? He remained steady, walking the same quiet path he always had. But the ripples of that one moment, his silent support, were spreading far wider than anyone expected. And then came the moment at the airport. Anna and Keanu were flying to Europe for a film premiere. It was supposed to be just another press trip. The team had arranged a private terminal, but a last-minute delay forced them to walk through the regular airport lounge. They moved quietly, wearing hats and sunglasses, not drawing attention. Most people didn't even notice them at first. But then, at gate 43, something happened. A young boy, maybe 9 or 10 years old, stood by the large windows, clinging to his mother's hand. His face was pale, and his body trembled. The mother kept whispering, "You're okay. Just breathe." But the boy shook his head violently. Tears rolled down his cheeks. Keanu saw it instantly. He knew that look. The fear, the breathlessness, the feeling of drowning while standing on solid ground. He gently touched Anna's arm. "I'll be right back," he said. Anna looked where he was heading and nodded without question. Keanu approached the mother slowly, keeping a respectful distance. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Is he afraid of flying?" The woman turned, eyes wide. "Yes," she said, panic in her voice. "He has anxiety. He's had panic attacks before. This is the first time we're flying without his father." Keanu knelt down, not too close, not too sudden, and looked at the boy. "Hey," he said softly. "I'm scared of flying too sometimes." The boy's eyes flicked to him. "But you're in movies," the boy whispered. Keanu smiled. "Even in movies we get scared. But you know what helps me?" He placed a hand on his chest and took a deep breath. Slow, controlled, peaceful. "I breathe like this. In through the nose, hold it for a second, then out through the mouth." The boy watched. Keanu did it again, and on the third breath, the boy copied him. The shaking slowed. The tears didn't stop, but they came slower. The mother covered her mouth, overwhelmed with emotion. Anna had walked over by now, standing quietly beside them, eyes misty. Keanu looked at the boy and asked, "Can I tell you a secret?" The boy nodded. "You're already brave. You didn't run away. You stood here. That makes you stronger than you think." The boy nodded again. This time, he stood straighter. Keanu turned to the mother and said gently, "Do you mind if I walk him down the jet bridge? Just a few steps?" She nodded quickly, unable to speak. So Keanu took the boy's hand. Not tightly, not forcefully. Just enough. And together, they walked toward the gate. Passengers all around watched in stunned silence. Some recorded, others just wept quietly. It wasn't a publicity moment. There were no flashing lights, no managers nearby. It was just one human helping another through fear. Anna joined the mother, placing a hand on her shoulder. "He did that for me once," she said softly, "and it changed everything." Later that night, a photo surfaced online. Keanu Reeves kneeling beside a frightened boy in an airport terminal, holding his hand, breathing with him. No fanfare, no press release, just a moment of pure human kindness. The post went viral in hours. But this time, something was different. Instead of just sharing the image, thousands of people began sharing their own stories of anxiety, fear, and the strangers who helped them breathe again. A week later, the boy's mother posted a message. "Donna, the man who helped my son breathe when no one else could, thank you. He got on the plane. He was scared, but he flew. And now he says he wants to help other kids feel brave too. You didn't just give him a moment, you gave him a future." Meanwhile, Keanu continued his quiet routine. He never brought it up in interviews, never used it for promotion. But he received a letter from a therapist's group. It read, "We've updated our emergency child anxiety protocols. Your approach, calm presence, respectful distance, modeling breath, has become part of our training guide. We didn't learn it in books. We learned it from you." Anna and Keanu were on a rooftop in Paris when she read him the letter. He smiled faintly. "I'm not a therapist," he said. Anna laughed. "No, but your silence heals more than most words ever could." They sat quietly for a while, watching the city glow below. Then Anna asked, "Do you ever get tired of helping everyone?" Keanu looked at her. "No," he said, "because once someone helped me, and I never forgot how that felt." Anna didn't ask who. She didn't need to. She just reached into her bag and pulled out the little journal he once gave her. "Me neither," she whispered, and for a moment, no cameras rolled, no audience clapped, just two people sitting under the stars, breathing in peace. Because the most powerful therapy doesn't always happen on a couch. Sometimes it happens in an airport gate, or a movie set floor, or in the silence between two steady breaths. The moment she broke down on stage, the months after the airport moment passed quickly. Interviews, awards, premieres. Ana de Armas was now being seen in a new light, not just as a talented actress, but as a voice of quiet strength. And Keanu? He was still beside her when it mattered, though always in the background, never stealing attention. But no one expected what would happen at the International Actors Foundation Gala in Madrid. Anna was invited to speak. It was a grand event. A room filled with industry legends, philanthropists, and thousands of young creatives watching from around the world. Anna had been honored with the Rising Star Humanitarian Award, not for a role she played, but for the lives she inspired just by being honest. Keanu was in the front row, wearing a simple black suit. He kept his hands folded, eyes focused on the stage. He had no idea what she planned to say. Anna stood at the podium. The lights dimmed. Silence filled the room. Then she looked up and froze. For a few seconds, she didn't say a word. The crowd waited patiently. Then she finally spoke. "Before I begin," she said, her voice shaking, "I want to say something that I've never said in public." The audience leaned in. "When I had a panic attack on set last year, I thought my career would be over. I was embarrassed. I felt weak. But then, someone knelt beside me and didn't try to fix me. He didn't speak over me. He just stayed, breathing with me." She paused. Tears now brimmed in her eyes. And that moment didn't just save a scene. It saved me. Some people in the crowd gasped softly. Others wiped their eyes. Anna looked straight at Keanu. "Keanu Reeves," she said softly. "You gave me more than comfort. You gave me permission to be real." Keanu's face didn't move, but his eyes, once again, carried all the emotion. Anna turned back to the audience. "I kept that story private for months, but then I saw what happened when the truth was shared. Strangers wrote to me saying they'd felt the same. People who never spoke of their fears began opening up. Children, parents, teachers, even soldiers." Her voice grew stronger, and that's when I realized the moment I feared would ruin me was the moment that healed others. Applause began to ripple across the room, slow and steady. But Anna wasn't done. She pulled the journal from her pocket, the same one Keanu had given her. "This little notebook," she said, holding it up, "became my lifeline. I wrote in it every day, and today I want to read the first thing I wrote." She opened to a page and read aloud. "Day 1. I am not my fear. I am the breath that moves through it." The room went silent again. Then someone stood, and then another, and within moments, the entire hall was on its feet, applauding not just for Anna's performance, but for her courage. After the ceremony, Keanu met her backstage. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Was that too much?" she whispered. He shook his head. "That was perfect." She laughed softly. "I almost broke down in front of the entire world." He smiled gently. "Sometimes, breaking open is what lets the light in." What happened next surprised even Anna. Mental health organizations from around the world reached out. They asked if she would partner with them to create something new, something powerful. Not just another awareness campaign, but a real movement. She said yes, but only on one condition, that Keanu help her design it. He said yes too, but only if he could stay behind the scenes. And so the Breath Project was born, a quiet, humble initiative that spread across schools, hospitals, film sets, and online communities. It offered free breathing guides, video messages from trauma therapists, and simple practices inspired by what Keanu had done that day on set. But most powerful of all were the anonymous journals. Blank notebooks were sent out to people struggling across the world. Inside the cover was a simple quote: "You don't have to be perfect, just present." One afternoon, Keanu walked into a bookstore in New York City. He was wearing his usual disguise, beanie hat, sunglasses, old leather jacket, as he browsed. Quietly, he saw a teenage girl sitting in the self-help section, holding a familiar journal in her lap. She looked anxious. Her foot tapped quickly. Her fingers trembled slightly. Keanu didn't speak. He sat in the next aisle over, out of sight, and waited. After 5 minutes, he heard her take a long, deep breath. Slow. Steady. She opened the book, and she wrote something. He didn't need to read it. He just closed his eyes and smiled. Anna and Keanu later traveled to Argentina for a mental health symposium. They sat on a small stage surrounded by therapists, teachers, and survivors. It wasn't a red carpet event. There were no reporters, no flashy outfits, just chairs and hearts. A woman stood and shared how she had been battling panic attacks since childhood. After hearing Anna's story, she began using breathing exercises to calm herself. She showed the room her filled journal. A man said he was a firefighter who used the breath training with children during rescues. A nurse from Istanbul said a hospital there had adopted the Breath Project into their emergency trauma care. Anna held Keanu's hand during that moment, and for the first time, he didn't pull away. By the end of the year, the Breath Project had reached over 5 million people. Schools began teaching presence sessions. Airlines started quiet cabins for anxious travelers. Movie sets hired on-site wellness guides. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a girl who once couldn't breathe on set now helped the world inhale hope and exhale fear. And the man who stayed beside her, he never once asked for credit. Because heroes like him don't need the spotlight. They become the light in someone's darkest hour. Full circle. The breath that changed the world. It had been exactly 1 year since Ana de Armas collapsed on set. 1 year since Keanu Reeves knelt beside her, not to rescue, but to simply breathe with her. A lot had changed since that moment. But the strange thing was, neither of them had tried to make it happen. It all unfolded quietly, naturally, like a ripple from a single drop in still water. And now, on this quiet spring morning, Anna and Keanu were walking side by side through a park in Lisbon. No cameras, no stage, just trees, birds, and the sound of children laughing in the distance. Anna glanced at him. "Do you ever stop and wonder how all of this happened?" she asked. Keanu chuckled softly. "Every day." "I mean," she continued, "it started with you catching me before I hit the ground. Now, look around." She gestured to the park, entrance behind them. A small sign read, "The Breath Project Garden, for anyone who needs a quiet place to just be." Built using donations from around the world, it had become a sanctuary for those battling silent storms. Benches, journals, calm fountains, breathing circles. It was a space designed not for treatment, but for presence. People came here not to fix themselves, but to rest without judgment. Anna sat on a bench. Keanu joined her. For a moment, they just listened, wind moving through leaves, a child chasing a butterfly, an elderly couple walking hand in hand. "There were days," Anna whispered, "when I thought I'd never feel this calm again." Keanu didn't respond with words. He just smiled, slow and soft, and nodded. Anna looked down at the small bag she carried. She pulled out the original journal, worn, edges soft, pages filled with memories, fears, and strength. "I want to give this to someone," she said. "Someone who needs it more now." Keanu raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yes," she nodded. "It's time." They stood up and walked slowly to a quiet corner of the garden where a small wooden box stood beneath a cherry blossom tree. The box was labeled, "Leave something for someone who can't speak their pain yet." Anna opened the box, gently placed the journal inside, and whispered, "Breathe. Just breathe." Then she closed it. They stood silently for a long moment. Months later, in a town far away, a teenage girl named Lucia stumbled into the garden. Her hands trembled, her eyes red from tears. She had just left a clinic where doctors told her she was emotionally overwhelmed and needed rest. She didn't know where else to go. She walked the stone path, found the cherry blossom tree, and saw the wooden box. Inside, she found the journal. She opened the first page. "Breathe. You've survived every breath so far." She burst into tears, not from sadness, but from relief. Somehow, without ever meeting her, someone understood exactly what she needed. She clutched the journal to her chest and sat under the tree. That day became the start of her healing. Back in Los Angeles, Keanu received a letter at his doorstep. No return address. Just a small card inside. "Thank you for teaching the world that healing doesn't always speak. It breathes." He folded the card, tucked it into a book on his shelf, and made himself tea. Anna, on the other hand, was preparing for a new film. It wasn't just another blockbuster. This one was different. It was her story. A story about a woman who broke under pressure, thought her career was over, but found strength in silence. The film would show everything: the fear, the fall, and the breath that brought her back. And Keanu? He agreed to play himself, not because he wanted to, but because she insisted the world see how gentle strength truly looks. They titled the film, "The Breath Between Us." On the night of the premiere, the crowd was huge. Reporters asked all kinds of questions. But one question from a young journalist stood out. She looked barely 20, hands shaking as she held the mic. "This film touched me," she said, voice trembling. "Because I've battled anxiety too. I just want to ask, what would you say to someone who's still in the middle of their panic?" Anna looked at her, eyes soft, then smiled and replied, "Don't rush your healing. You're not behind. You're not broken. Just keep breathing. One moment at a time. And remember, even when no one speaks, someone sees you." Keanu nodded beside her and added gently, "And they're not leaving." The girl burst into tears right there on the carpet. Anna stepped forward and hugged her. No cameras flashed, no music played, just a simple human moment, just like it all began. In the weeks after the movie's release, something amazing happened. People. In schools, subways, offices, even prisons, started hosting breathing moments. Not yoga, not therapy, just silent minutes where people sat together and breathed. Sometimes they'd leave journals in cafes. Sometimes they'd write messages on bathroom mirrors. But always, they carried the same spirit. You're not alone. Breathe. I'm here. And in the quiet of his home, Keanu sometimes sat with a candle lit, staring at nothing in particular. Not sad, not overwhelmed, just present. He didn't need applause. He didn't need awards, because in the end his greatest role wasn't one on screen. It was the one where he stayed kneeling beside someone who couldn't breathe, and waited until she could. And from that breath, 1,000 more lives began again.